My name is Aisha Bowe, and you're watching On the Cover on Rolling Out.
How would you describe like that childhood curiosity, like when you first recognized?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm just gonna keep it real. I think people really focus on childhood and curiosity, but some of us have to learn how to dream. My childhood wasn't about reaching and aspiring, it was about surviving. It was about making it to the next day. And so space came from me deciding that I, as an 18-year-old who nobody really expected a lot out of because they were measuring me by my performance in high school, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, I then was like, look, I'm going to do the thing you think I'm not capable of doing. And I've committed my life towards being completely and totally unrealistic. Like, that's how I operate. And the thing that lacked realism was that I was going to go into space, because who goes into space? The best people go into space. And I wanted to feel confident. I wanted to feel like I had accomplished something. And space represented that for me.
You mentioned dreaming and having a dream. How would you describe that dream that you had, and when did it feel like it was becoming real?
I had the dream to escape the reality that I was in at the time. For me, learning how to dream was really a luxury. When I was younger, I didn't have a lot of dreams because I was focused on all the things I did not have, right? I painfully felt all of what I perceived around me as a disadvantage, when really it was an advantage because it made me robust and it made me resilient. Going into community college, I said, why is it that I think that I'm less than great? And it was because I was internalizing all of this stuff that other people told me. Like, I thought people knew more about me than I knew about myself. And when I decided to just say, I'm going to write the playbook for my own success, I'm going to be the author of my life, that started with dreaming because it felt good. It felt far better to have a dream than to wake up every day with the weight of being young, being Black, and being in America. So for me, it was, hey, let's put this list out. It's going to be on the back of my bedroom door, and I'm going to look at it, I'm going to pray over it, and I'm going to work towards it. And that feeling was what led me into my career and eventually led me here.
You mentioned being African American and Black. What's a principle that you live by when it comes to becoming a scientist that you would think that, or you'd want to see within the Black community?
The world is better because I dare to dream. I meet so many people who are underneath the weight of assumptions, of ideas that are true sometimes, not always, not often. And when I went into the field, I spent more time questioning myself than questioning the external world. And what I started to realize was that we cannot allow others to hold us back. So you must try, you must do. And when you do, you realize that the things that you may have thought were improbable are probable. I mean, I'm someone who went from having a 2.313 in high school, who was told that they would never get into the college that I graduated from, who was told that they would never work for NASA, who was told that they could never run a successful business, who was told that they never could raise venture capital, and who was told that they could never go to space. I did that. I have 2 degrees in aerospace engineering from the University of Michigan. I worked for NASA for 6 years. I founded a company I ran for 12 years without outside capital. I then raised over $2 million in venture capital, and then I raised the money to fly to space. And when I did that, I hand-selected what I wanted to do an experiment on, was HBCU work with the mostly female research team at Winston-Salem. And so my whole life was about doing exactly what people told me that I couldn't do. And the principle that I want to share is, if someone told you that you couldn't do it, because one day they'll tell you that they knew you could.
If you were to give a speech, let's say like at Spelman or Howard, how would you have them prepare for a future in the space industry and describe some opportunities that you see in the area of space that is not often talked about enough in our community?
I mean, I went to space on a rocket that was not a possibility when I was working at NASA. The industry is changing so quickly, and if you look at who's leading, it's who thinks that they can and they should. These space companies are not necessarily run by aerospace engineers. They're successful entrepreneurs who are passionate about the field and have decided that they're going to make it better. We need everybody. We need space accountants. We need lawyers. We need physiologists. Every field can be a space field. And so if you're thinking about it, go and do it, because there's really no one type of person or playbook. It is an area where you can bring your skills and your talents, and you can build a company or build a technology and be successful.
You mentioned a lot of areas that people probably had no idea even existed, but based off of what you know when it comes to just the world of space and the opportunities there, where would you suggest, or where do you think Black women such as yourself should take up the most space in this area?
I really want to see Black women and Black people, period, leaning into thought leadership in all aspects of the space, right? Like, you should get in where you fit in. I've seen everything from people deciding to redesign our spacesuits to make them more female friendly, to even make them more form-fitting, more snug, more appealing aesthetically, to starting to kind of explore, well, how do different types of people interact with the space environment? When I flew, we gathered data on my biometrics so that I could contribute to the database about how African American women respond to microgravity. There's so many things for someone to decide that they want to take part in, but I think the most important thing is to realize that there's someone out there doing exactly what it is that you want to do, not because they're qualified, but because they think they can. And so I want to ask you, why aren't you chasing your dreams? To me, it's bigger than space. It's about what you dare to dream. One of the things that I'm really aware of is that there's still this perception of a ceiling, of, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. And space is one of those wild dreams. And for many, it's the first thing. When they're little, they want to be, right? They want to grow up. They want to go to space. They want to be an astronaut. And then someone tells them that they can't do it. And why? For me, I traveled around, and there were so many women that would come up to me and say, you know, my little girl or little boy wanted an astronaut costume. But because I saw you, I realized it's not a costume. It's a uniform for a job that they could have in the future. And I think that is so important. Why are we placing limits on other people's dreams? And when we look at the systems in society, I'm here because I want to make a statement. I want to challenge that if I can do it, so can you. And that no one should accept the limitations that someone else puts on their life. With space, this is another example of a system that may not have been designed with me in mind. And I had an option. I could choose to silently protest from the sidelines, or I could show up every single day, walk in excellence, and make decisions that shape the future and change the system from the inside. Very few of us will ever have the opportunity to be in a perfect situation or perfect scenario, but we do have the opportunity to choose how we show up and what we get to leave for future generations to build on. I want to go beyond the headlines because there's been so much discussion about the flight, who was on it, and why it happened. For me, I've been in this field for over a decade, and no one was more interested in space and how it worked until I stepped on that rocket on the 14th of April. And I'm happy for it because we as a society, in the words of Baldwin, you cannot change what has not been faced. And so for us to have the conversation about who gets to participate and how they participate, and to see in this model that I raised the money, I picked the science, I supported the institutions and the organizations that were meaningful to me, and I even carried a flag that went to the moon on the Apollo 12 mission with the NASA astronaut as a symbol of tying the past, the present, and the future of space together. There was a lot that happened there that kind of got lost with all of the chaos around who should fly and why they should fly. And what I want to invite the audience is to really think about how we choose to show up, where and when. And while I don't debate that there's meaningful discussions that need to be had about scientists and the future of exploration, the challenge that I'm experiencing, it's sort of like going to work, right? Like when you go to work, do you get to pick your coworkers, or you decide to go to work and work with what you got, right? You decide to go to work and you work with what you got because you like your job. You want to do a good job, right? And this is no different. I don't know if there's ever been an astronaut that got to pick their entire crew, but what they did decide was that they were going to chart their path, they were going to show up, and they were going to step and they were going to walk in their truth. And that is what I encourage people to really, really look at. If I, as someone who wasn't the most likely to succeed in high school, who wasn't thinking even remotely about going to space, can put together a campaign that can find the resources and find my way into an opportunity years later that the world sees, then you matter too. And you have choice. And the choices that you make can change things. And if you so decide to shape the future, you can and you will.
So for those who will be shaping the future, can you tell them what the experience is going to be like when they're getting ready to go on? Like, let's just go a little lighter with the conversation. But like, so for not that we
people won't understand it until you're gone.
Right. So, but straight to those.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. A lot of that.
No, real talk. It's, I have this saying, right? And I'm constantly reminding myself, don't tell people your dreams, show them. Oftentimes, what is in your mind, people won't understand, and it's okay if they don't understand. That just means that you are a visionary, right? And leadership is seeing around the corner, management is seeing down the hallway. If you are going to lead, you're going to be oftentimes in situations where not everybody's going to be happy. But remember that history, the arc, the memory, it is long. And a lot of things that we look on today that we're like, oh yeah, they did it, like Martin Luther King, early space flight, all that stuff was really contentious at the time. But now when we're flipping through the books, we're like, well, of course. People weren't around. They don't really remember what it was like. And if you talk to the older generation, they'll tell you a lot of these decisions that we consider to be the right choices were not super popular in the time. And so for me, I've just kind of settled into this time in my career where I'm really focused on the legacy. I'm focused on the endowments that I'm building. I'm focused on making sure that people have a path that I've created that's repeatable. I raised money for my flight, you can too. I built a business without investment, you can too. Like all of those things I'm leaving behind so that someone else maybe has an easier path than I did when I created it.
Tell us about your morning, or how did that day go and start and end? Just walk us through, if you could, just the process of it.
I would like to take you to the day, and while that is important, I started training for space in 2022. I've flown fighter jets, I've jumped out of planes, I trained at the only FAA-approved human-rated centrifuge at 6 Gs. And the path for me, it wasn't this, I'm just gonna wake up and I'm gonna go to space, not that at all. I literally looked at the human space flight regulations, the same ones that commercial industry uses to train their astronauts, And I said, how can I leverage my understanding as an aerospace engineer to build a path that would make sure that I was ready? So by the time we got to that day, when I started at like 2 a.m, and I walked out of the tent and I was greeted by my family and my loved ones, I walked and I saw 2 women whose shoulders I'm standing on right now. One of them is Joan Higginbotham, the other is Jeanette Epps, and Dr. Cyan Proctor was there. We had nearly every African American woman that had ever crossed the Kármán line or gone anywhere near it in the same place, because we all understand the assignment. The assignment is education, it's inspiration, and it's empowering the next generation and communicating that in this, we're unified, we're not divided. So for me to walk out and see women who I aspired to just know and share space with, greeting me and telling me, hey, not only do we know that you can do this, but we're applauding for you. And when you land, we're gonna be here. That was everything. I also saw my 93-year-old grandfather, who came from an island that didn't have airplanes when he was born, to flying from Exuma and seeing me go to space, which is incredible. And the whole energy of it, it was electric, because the flight was not an end. It was a beginning. I'm an aerospace professional. If you think that I'm stopping there, you're wrong. This is another notch in my resume, and I'm determined to go back. I want to fly longer. I want to fly higher. But how do you know that you like it if you don't try? For me, this flight not only communicated that I wanted to go to space, but if you listen to the recording and we're on the ground, they check in with me and they're like, Kota and Exuma, how are you doing? And I was like, BlueCom, when do I go back? And that's the energy with which I'm bringing to this entire industry. We have to shift the paradigm. We need more people who are like me in the field, that are blazing trail and who are widening the definition of what it means to go to space.
For the kids out there, like, how would you describe the feeling? Like, take us back to when the seatbelt went on. Like, what's the sensation when you're going? Like, how does it feel?
Being in the capsule, when the seatbelt sign goes off and you are free to move around the cabin, it feels like a balloon that is getting ready to float away. I unhooked my harness and I immediately floated up. And I just was like, whoa, wait a second. I was concerned I was gonna hit the ceiling. I flew up so fast. You're incredibly buoyant. And when I went to the window to look at the earth, I simply rotated my hand, and the next thing you know, I was upside down. And that was an amazing experience for me, because I realized that in microgravity, you really don't need to do all that much to be able to move around. But I also had the opportunity to see the darkness, that's space, and to gain a better appreciation for life on Earth. We're a miracle, and it's impossible when you see it to not feel as though it's meant to be. And in the words of Bishop T.D. Jakes, who prayed with me the night before I flew, the same God down here is the God that's up there. And I think sometimes our definition is too small, because what you see is so beautiful that it moves you and it gets in your soul. And when you come back, you forever want to talk about the beauty of Earth from space.
Love that. Just given what you know about space and how vast it is, and it's quite hard to comprehend, as you know. But just knowing what you know in space travel, how excited are you for the future space colonies, and things like that?
So I'm so excited for the future of space, because I have people around the world that are sending me notes. I'm not talking 6-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. They're building spaceships out of their Legos. They're in their spacesuits. They got their like tinfoil capes, and they're writing me. They're sending me messages, and they're so excited because they realize that space looks like them too. And for the next generation who's gonna lead the Mars crew, who's gonna go far beyond anything that I could think is possible, I can't wait for them to go do it and to take the science fiction and turn it into science facts.
What do you think space colonies will look like? Talk about space colonies.
What do I think that space colonies are gonna look like? I think that they're gonna mimic life on Earth. We're probably gonna have spaces where people are gonna go to school. We'll have spaces where people will garden. That was one of the experiments that I flew. I wanted to nod to the agricultural heritage of HBCUs, and so we flew an experiment that looked at how plants responded to microgravity. And the idea is that these plants in the future will be grown in space. And if we can figure out how to grow plants in space, we can definitely grow plants in inhospitable places here on Earth and maybe get at food security. And maybe we can actually address food deserts. Space has implications here, from highly evolved breast cancer screening to even memory foam and how we lead our daily life. It's really space for the benefit of Earth.
Earlier you mentioned that you were, being studied because you're a Black woman going to space.
Absolutely.
Microgravity, and they wanted to see how the Black woman responded to that, I guess, physically.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, Black people, we do things and we're great at it, right? We excel at pretty much whatever we do in ways that are superior, I would say, in a lot of ways. But do you think that we could have an edge in space given our anatomy, or like what came of the study, if there is one?
So imagine that you have the opportunity to contribute to meaningful science by sharing your data. Would you do it? For me, that was the question. And I said yes. In the history of American spaceflight, less than 10 African American women have been that high. I did not want to miss the opportunity to contribute my data so people could study how I responded and build a data set that could better protect people who chose to go in the future. That was my choice. And when I look back on all of what has been done to date, it's really about getting as many data points so that when we do the long duration mission or when we design the next generation spacesuit, that we know how to design it for all as opposed to some. Because I'll tell you, we have a lot of data about the some.
Is it too soon to ask what the data showed about you? Do we know yet?
We don't. It is a little too soon. There's a number of things that are going to be coming out over the course of the next year. One, which I'm really excited about, is the students from Winston-Salem. They're going to publish their research paper. Having been an undergrad, I never came anywhere near flying anything to space. And so for these students to actually touch world-class research and have a spaceflight opportunity that they can publish, I'm so excited about them and their career and their results. But for my human data, it's going into a database and it's going to be studied and it'll be studied again. And I just wanted to be able to contribute that information, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I know that that is far going to exceed my timeline here on Earth.
We're going to wrap it up with one more question. So you're speaking straight to young girls, boys, mostly girls, because I think they'll relate to in ways that the boys won't. Young boys.
No, I mean, I think when I flew on Blue Origin, my mentee, who I had mentored since she was 13, helped build the very same rocket engine I flew on. Full stop. Black people inspire all people. And so this journey, yes, I love us. I love the young boys. I love the girls. But we move culture. We move everything around the world. If we decide that we want to be excellent, we excel. And so my message is to everybody, dream it, plan it, and go do it. Because that's exactly what I did, and that's how I got here.
Maybe you could give us 3 keys. So for all you out there who want to, dive into the world of aeronautics and space.
But it's, yes, but, right? So it's bigger than space.
That's my own ignorance and just ignorance.
It's okay, but it's bigger than space. It's about deciding what it is that you want to do in this world and not taking no as an answer. Every 5 years, I go to the drawing board and I'm like, what are we going to be? What are we going to do in the next 5 years? I decided I want to get a college degree. I got that, did that twice, done. I decided that I wanted to work as an engineer, did that. I decided I wanted to be a businesswoman, did that. Then I decided that I wanted to run an education company, did that. I'm constantly evolving and I'm challenging myself to not accept yesterday's best. I'm all about how can I continue to evolve, because the only thing constant in life is change. So why decide that things are good enough if you can continuously elevate? And that's really what I want to bring to the table, is you're looking at someone who's constantly shifting, who's constantly growing, and at each step I hear something that I think is a myth or is not true. And I bust through that and I go to the next thing. And so now I've been to space, and now I want to build that $1 billion company. Now I want to go back to space. Now I'm going to write the book. Now I'm going to do the movie. It's about doing what I thought I couldn't do.